بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online course. And we are still with the contract of MURABAHAH, and we are also still in the asset discussion. And we have highlighted a few points and Sharia requirements with regard to the asset, and today we carry on additional Sharia requirements and criteria of the asset. So again, one of the very important aspects of the asset is that the asset must be inexistent, which means there is a specific asset that exists, intangible or otherwise, but it does exist in the office, at home, in the warehouse. And as a result of that, if the asset is under construction or the asset to be constructed, so it will not be convenient and relevant as an asset for MURABAHAH. The other point of the asset of MURABAHAH, the asset of MURABAHAH should not be debt in nature. So you cannot have it as a debt. That one disqualify the asset of being asset in MURABAHAH. The other point with regard to the asset of MURABAHAH is that sometimes when you trade in the asset of MURABAHAH, this asset could be a rabawi item, which means could fall within gold or silver, or the other four commodity, barley, wheat, dates, and salt. So those are the 6 rabawi items, and these normally assets, especially the 4 commodities, they have specific Sharia requirements to comply with. Now, if you do that with MURABAHAH, if you take, for example, the 4 commodities, wheat, barley, salt, and dates, and you do a trade, if basically you are buying them with cash, so no restrictions. But in case there is a muqayada, which means a form of barter trade whereby price could be dates, and the subject matter, what you are selling, could be dates. So that's where some of the Sharia requirements may be imposed. When it comes to MURABAHAH, it may not be relevant and convenient for that, because you cannot have a markup. You cannot have a profit, because this commodity and this kind of rabawi items, if they are from the same category and they have been exchanged, so you have to observe, number one, equality in the quantity, so you cannot make a profit over it. And number two, the spot of exchange, exchanging the commodity. And of course, if, like for example, you are doing dates versus dates, barley versus barley. Now, if you defer the class, like for example, barley versus dates, salt versus wheat, so you can make profit here, which means that the quantity will not be observed, so it will be flexible to have, let's say, 1 container versus 2 containers, double or triple. That's when it depends on the supply and demands and the arrangement between the party. But the problem here, you cannot have a deferred payments on it, because it's required a spot of the exchange of the item, meaning here we'll be talking about the MURABAHAH without deferment, because as you know, MURABAHAH is divided into 2. Spot MURABAHAH, whereby the exchange will be done on the spot, and deferred MURABAHAH, whereby the payment will be through installment. So in case of commodities, rabawi item, so if it is from the same category, dates versus dates, barley versus barley, it will not be convenient and relevant to have a MURABAHAH, because you cannot make profit. And if they are from different classes, dates versus salt, the variations of the quantity could be done, but you cannot observe the deferment, but you have to do it as a spot MURABAHAH. The other points that should be looked at when it comes to the asset of MURABAHAH is that the ownership in the MURABAHAH asset must be effectively transferred from the seller to the purchaser, which means that if transactions of murabaha is done, so typically the asset will go to the buyer, and basically the price goes to the seller. So there is an exchange of the item, and also this kind of exchange, which is informed or affected by offer and acceptance, will mark its effect on the subject matter, whereby the ownership will move and transfer from the seller to the buyer. So before murabaha, the owner of the asset is the seller. After murabaha, the owner of the asset is the purchaser, and we should have evidences like documentations, like legal titles, or signatures of offer and acceptance, any kind of communications which is acknowledged by Sharia and acknowledged by the commercial law and the commercial practice and the custom practice, that shows that this kind of an exchange of offer and acceptance, or this kind of transactions will basically impact the ownership of the asset. That one will be accepted and recognized. But what is important is that upon offer and acceptance, so basically the asset will be transferred from the what's so-called seller to the buyer. With that, thank you very much. Inshallah, see you in the coming session. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.